don't mean to brag or anything, but I've had cancer twice. So I think I consider myself a pro cancer beater, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I think it's pretty cool that I've had cancer twice. I think it's cool that I beat cancer twice, is what I meant to say. I don't mean to brag or anything, but I've had stage 2, stage 4, you know, 2-time cancer champ. But there's a lot of things that I wish that I knew at the time when I was going through stage 2 and stage 4. But I kind of want to make this guide before you have chemo, or if you are going through cancer right now, maybe you can use some of these tips or advice to kind of help you through it. The first thing that I wish I knew was shaving your head. Now for me, I shaved my head before chemo even started, and now what I didn't realize is that chemo is the one that shaves your head, not cancer. The whole reason why you lose hair in the first place is because of chemotherapy, because chemo kills your body to cure your body, so it kills all your hair follicles, your leg hair. So if you have to worry about shaving your leg hair, you don't have to worry about that anymore because you have cancer. Wow, so great. Thing is that you won't start losing hair until you start chemo. For me, what I did is that I wanted to take control of the situation and do the cliche thing of shaving my head before cancer could take it from me. And I ended up backfiring because I shaved my head too early. I shaved my head about 2 weeks before chemo started, my hair started growing back, and once chemo finally started, I wanted to avoid the whole depressing stage of me pulling out my own hair. Once my hair grew back, I kind of put my hands through my hair one day and this happened.
All this hair, oh my God, it's just still coming out. I have a bald spot, all this hair.
Learn from my mistake. Don't shave your head until like 2 weeks into chemo. Or until it finally starts and maybe your eyebrows start to lose, because you even lose your eyebrow hair. You don't have any eyebrows. The other thing too with chemo is that every single chemo is different. Not all chemos you will be losing hair. For me personally, I had methotrexate and double dose. I couldn't tell you exactly what was in double dose just because that was the hard hitter of chemo, because it's 2 types of chemo combined that I would have over the course of 17 sessions and 9 months. Every single chemo is different. For methotrexate, I had to be in the hospital for about a week and a half because you weren't allowed to leave until you had 0.07 of methotrexate in your system. There would be so many times where I would have 0.08 and I would be arguing with my doctor at 2 in the morning because my nurses would call and they would wake up my doctor and I would be over the phone with him just like, can you please just send me home? I'm sick and tired of being in this hospital for the past week and a half. I just want to go home. I don't want to be in the hospital anymore. I don't want to be cooped up in here. I just want to leave. And my doctor would never let me leave because he has to follow protocol. And there'd be so many times where my parents would argue and it just would never go well because my doctor would be waking up at 2 in the morning to tell a 15-year-old to kick rocks and to just stay with protocol. That was with methotrexate. For double dose of chemo, the amount of times where I would be nauseous, the amount of times where I would feel fatigued and just have chemo brain, which is, for me personally, chemo brain was forgetting everything that would happen because of the amount of medication and chemo that you're on. For double dose, I would be in there for about a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks at a time because your immune system was so low, so you weren't allowed to leave. I'd be in a separate room that was constantly sanitized and had separate oxygen in the room. There's so many different complications when it comes to chemo, and that for double dose, I was just in there much longer and there'd be so many times where I couldn't even walk, I couldn't even move, and I was just completely fatigued and just really going through it. So with that, honestly, just prepare yourself with a lot of clothes, books, TV shows, whatever it is that you want to do for a long amount of time to kill time, to get your mind off things. Probably start that. For me, I wish I started a lot more TV shows at the time because I could have binged watched so many seasons of anime right now. The other thing too is that with chemo brain is that you would forget that you would start a TV show. Me and my dad would watch a TV show, Breaking Bad, coincidentally, and we'd watch episode 1 during chemo, and then episode 2 we'd watch the next day, and my dad would be like, all right, you ready to watch episode 2 of Breaking Bad? And I would tell him, when did we start episode 1? And I would just look at him with a blank stare, and he was very concerned because I was forgetting things. One of the other things with chemo too is that for me personally, I couldn't really shower because of my pore system and because how fatigued I was. So all I had was the hospital grade medical wipes to kind of sanitize your body. So you kind of just feel gross because it has that hospital smell and you just don't feel like yourself because, you know, you're going through chemo and you're in the hospital. So what I would recommend is stack up on a lot of extra clean clothes because you're gonna be in that hospital for a while. Who knows how long you're gonna be in there. The trip could be extended by a week, it could be extended by a couple of extra days, but it doesn't hurt to have a couple of extra clean shirts because there's so many times where you're either going to throw up on yourself or there's times where you're probably gonna pee the bed because that's happened a couple times and it's just not that great. So just bring a lot of extra clothes because you honestly, I wish I was more prepared than underprepared because there are so many times where there's just things would go wrong because chemo is just completely random at times. For me now, I can never drink Gatorade again because I drank Gatorade all the time during chemo. So now when I try and drink Gatorade, my body just has this weird PTSD association with chemo. So now every time I drink Gatorade, I just get really nauseous or I can't really drink it because it just doesn't sit right with me anymore. So it's very weird. I would always drink Gatorade during the hospital and I had Panda Express. So now when I eat it or drink that beverage, I just can't handle it anymore. One of the other things for chemo to prepare for is what kind of port you have. This is the port that I had. This was in my body. It's pretty cool. It looks like an arc reactor, but this was right here. If you can see my scar. You want to know how I got these scars? So this was my port, and that was my port as well. So this would be kind of poking out on my body. There's this type of port, and there's another one with like tubes hanging out of you. For me, I preferred this one because I could shower at home and there was no issue, and it was waterproof. The other one you had to physically clean and make sure that nothing would contaminate the tubes that you'd have. So I preferred this one. My surgeon let me keep it. It's like a little celebratory token of success of beating cancer. I couldn't get a medal, but I could quit a cool little thing that was in my body. What's super funny about this is that every single time they had to inject chemo, they had to like stab the port every single time. When I was in chemo, I was already nervous before going to chemo because you're gonna be there for however many weeks. You're going through chemo, and every single time my nurse Melanie, she's got me. She would nail it every time. She would never miss. There'd be times where she would ask me if I could have the medical students practice their port. And I'm like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. So I would be laying there, got my music playing, trying to relax, and all of a sudden this nurse student would miss and I'd get stabbed. I'm like, oh! So choose your battles wisely. If you have a set system, stick with that system because you don't want to be worrying about getting stabbed randomly with a port. That's the other thing too. Get used to a bunch of needles. You're gonna conquer if you're fast. You're gonna go through a lot of medication. You're gonna have like 9 pills a day because you're on so many different types of medication that's going on. You learn how to down a lot of pills and you learn how to get used to needles because this is the life of cancer. The other thing about cancer too is just trying to find a way to cope. For me, I cope with a lot of humor and positivity just because that is what was able to get me through it. Not everyone is like that. I know there's people that have gone through chemo and they don't like joking about cancer and they don't like making jokes about it. But for me, that was just what got me through it because I saw it as just a time to where I need to make myself smile, so I need to laugh and I need to be able to control the situation that I'm in because once you're going through cancer, I just wanted to have a sense of control. My life was being taken away from me. I was 15 years old, I was going through stage 2, and I just wanted to have some sort of sense of control over my life. I couldn't control cancer, I couldn't control chemo, how my body was reacting, but the one thing that I could control was my mindset and how I was reacting. So every single time that I would smile and bring joy during chemo treatment, everyone else around me would smile and it would just make everyone else more positive. But every single time that I was negative, it would just make the situation worse. Even though I was going through cancer and stage 2 and all this unknown and losing my leg and all this other stuff, I just wanted to be able to control my attitude, my mindset, and my smile because that was the only thing that I could control. I highly recommend just doing your best to stay positive throughout this time because cancer fucking sucks. One of the hardest things about cancer too was just talking about it. I never wanted to talk about how I truly was feeling. There'd be so many times where my doctor would recommend going to the cancer therapies and just going in a big cancer group and going in a big circle and talking about how we have cancer and how sad we are. And I personally didn't want to do that. I didn't feel comfortable talking about my story and telling others how I was truly feeling. So what I wish that I did at the time was journaled more. I wish I wrote down my feelings and just kind of expressed how I was feeling because there were so many times where it just felt like I had this frog in my throat and I couldn't really even speak because I wanted to speak, but I didn't want to speak, if that makes any sense at all. I wish what I did was just express how I felt, whether it was to someone, whether it was to myself, whether it was in my notes, because there were times that I did that, and I just wish that I expressed how I truly was feeling because there were so many times throughout cancer to where no one truly knew how I was feeling because it just felt like I was putting a huge burden on top of them by telling them how I was feeling. Anyone out there that does relate to that, just write down how you feel and just to vent to yourself on how you are truly feeling because I wish I had someone that was there for me and that kind of understood what I was going through. Because the other thing with cancer is that whenever I told someone that I had cancer, whenever I told someone how I was feeling, they kind of just saw me as this kind of a lesser of a person. I don't really know how to make sense of it because they would tell me how strong I am and how positive I am and how I got this and how, just keep smiling every single day going through cancer. And there were so many times where that was honestly just hard. I stayed positive as much as I could, but I wasn't the strong person that people said that I was. And I wasn't this guy that was smiling all the time. There were so many times where I was in my own sort of darkness and kind of dealing with that. So whenever someone would treat me differently and seeing me as someone that's lesser and seeing me as someone that's going through cancer, it sucked. My biggest advice to anyone that knows someone that's going through cancer is just to treat them the same as you would before because that is what helped me a lot. With my friends, we would joke about having cancer and just, we would have all these different jokes to kind of lift me up and to just treat me the same. And that is what truly helped me and my family get through it. One of the last things that I wish that I knew or that I wish that I was reminded of was to just never give up because there were so many times where I wanted to. There were so many times where I wanted to stop, where I wanted to just stop chemo and to just live my life and do whatever that I wanted to do and just to wait until one of the days would finally be over. And there was just so many times where I was in my own darkness, and which where I wanted to quit. But my turning point for me was just believing in myself, telling myself every single day that I got this, telling myself every single day that I can do this, telling myself every single day that I could do one more day. I could do one more day of chemo, and this will be over. I could do one more week, one more month, and my life will finally be free, because cancer was just so much at the time. So to tell myself that every single day and to believe in myself that I was going to beat this, I don't give a shit if it was stage 4, if I had 3 months left to live, if I had a 10% chance, because that was everything that I had, and I never thought that I'd be able to beat the odds. So for anyone that has cancer right now, or for anyone that has anyone going through that, just never quit and never stop living, because there's just so much to live for. So keep believing in yourself and keep telling yourself that you are going to beat this, because you will, and I just wish someone told me that sooner.